Ladies and gentlemen, we are now live.
All right, Nathan, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It is 7:01 p.m. on February 1st. This is a special meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees, and I hereby call this meeting to order. Clerk Kelly, would you please, or sorry, Clerk Freeze, if you would please. I realize that I'd like to just say publicly, we've been calling you Kelly, or I've been calling you Kelly for all the meetings, and I think that that was a miss on my part. I apologize. I should have been referring to you with your title similar to everyone else. So Clerk Freeze, if you would please do the roll call.
Trustee Barella?
Here.
Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Weigert?
Here.
Trustee Bierma?
Here.
Trustee George? Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Here.
Mayor Furman?
Here. And I'd like to just add to the minutes officially that Trustee George did call in and let us know that he would need to miss this meeting in response to a search and rescue call. And he's very apologetic. At this point, I will turn it over to Attorney Kosnick to provide a little bit of context around the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to start off this meeting by saying I know that I've received some comments today, and I understand that there may be members of the public who want to provide comments regarding the resignation of the town administrator, which is on the agenda today. But the purpose of really the board's consideration of the resignation is to determine whether less than 30 days notice is adequate. Because pursuant to the contract between the town and an administrator, the administrator must provide 30 days advance notice of resignation unless the town agrees to a shorter term. So the board is not considering whether to accept or reject the administrator's resignation. It's to evaluate, or they're not really considering at all an evaluation of his employment performance. Instead, any comments today should really be focused solely on whether to allow for less than 30 days notice and should be limited in discussion. And also, before this meeting, I received a comment from Administrator Ryer, and he's also hoping that comment is limited today regarding that matter. So I just wanted to kind of open that up as part of the discussion today.
Thank you. All right, so jumping right in, new business 1A, consideration of settlement and release between Strategic Construction Solutions Incorporated and the town. And for that, Director Seitz will provide context.
Yes, at the last meeting, trustees requested, and I believe rightfully so, that they have the document in hand, the settlement agreement that was drafted by Attorney Kosnick. That's in your packet tonight, and you can take a look at that. Again, that document is favorable to the town of Silverton more so than the contractor. And we believe, Attorney Kosnick believes that this is a solid document to get us completion with this project and this contract. The other request by the trustees was locating the funds in the budget. And my confusion was that the funds are located in the 2020 budget. And they're spoken for in December 2020, almost the exact amount of the settlement, as well as the completion of the contract, which is $198,750. Sorry, my cat is trying to, I'm gonna have to get this cat out of here. He's all over my computer. But the money is spoken for in the 2020 budget. And we have spoken with the auditor, and the auditor has confirmed trustee or Administrator Ryder's strategy that we can allocate those funds to 2020. And I see that John Ryder is here, and if he would like to comment on that, I would welcome that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, a couple things. This was a negotiation that went on for months. We think the outcome is a fair outcome, certainly fair to the town, and what John and I think was the extra work that was performed. I'd like to congratulate John. He stuck in there for months with SCS negotiating. And number two, yeah, I spoke with the auditor, Lyman Hamlin. This was earmarked in December of 2020 in the projection, and I believe we talked about it during budget sessions that it was there. The question was, we thought this would be done in 2020 and that we'd be cutting the check, but spilled over into 2021. We will simply make an accrual for the expense in 2020. That will reverse in 2021. So as we pay the actual expense in 2021, it'll net out against the reversed entry, creating no impact to the 2021 budget.
Thank you. So if the trustees have any more questions, we'll be glad to field them. Trustee Barella.
I guess I just have a concern. Moving forward on the next project that we have that is going to involve, millions of dollars for the sewer plant. Are we going to be looking at using a different engineering firm? Or are we going to be looking at using, because this is such a big budget overage that wasn't in the original package of the expenditures. Are they going to do a little bit more due diligence to make sure that we don't have a massive overrun? Because this is a little scary just based on this one, to make sure that we cover ourselves for the next big go around. So I guess I want some assurances or some additional information on what the project will look like going forward with the next large project, because almost 200 grand in overruns is a lot. Comparatively, it was only a $100,000 project.
And I agree. And the project was over $600,000 on the books, and the overage was $170,000. But I wouldn't be quick to blame the engineers. We had, when the new tank was installed in 1985 and we had a lot of work done, our plan sets were incomplete. We had some plan sets that said certain things were in the ground, and we had other plan sets that didn't. And I even called Clay Brown, who now works for DOLA, and he was our public works director in the 80s when this happened. And he recalled that certain things were completed, but they were not. And there was a great deal of confusion about what was in the ground and what we would find. And unfortunately, what was drawn on those plan sets was not in the ground. It was a totally different situation when we tried to finally started chasing pipes and trying to find valves. Those valves weren't in the ground, those pipes weren't in the ground, and a lot of extra work had to be done. So it was not something, in my opinion, that could be foreseen by town staff or the engineers. And all this work really needed to be done one way or the other. So it's the board's prerogative to look at different engineers, or my prerogative to recommend other engineers. But I think our engineers have done a really good job throughout the course of their work with us over the past 5 or 6 years. So that's a different question, but we can certainly shop for engineers. But in this particular case, it was a bad situation for the town of Silverton, but the work needed to be done. So I would stand behind the work and the process that we used to achieve the work that was completed. Unfortunately, it's a big hit, but we've managed to find a way to solve the problem, thankfully. So
yeah, I might add that I did probably a dozen of these type of projects down at PERG. We had a change order on every single one of them. Unfortunately, when you're digging on stuff that got put in the ground 40 years ago, as-built, if you even have as-built for something that was built 10, 15, 20 years ago, that precisely tells you what and where is in the ground it's just very hard to come by. People just didn't do it and didn't document properly over the years. It was, no criticism, it's just the way things were done. And this was a big one. We found out that you couldn't bypass the tanks. There wasn't proper hookups to do that. So if you wanted to work on one tank or the other, we couldn't bypass and take one offline because of things that just hadn't been installed that on paper may have looked like they were installed. So I guess I would say, Trustee Barella, yes, there is reason to be concerned. And I laid awake a lot of nights down at PERG worrying about this kind of stuff, but often until you dig, you just aren't going to know exactly what's in the ground, and these things will happen. It's not uncommon, in my opinion. It certainly wasn't uncommon down at PERG. When, think about it, 30 years ago, guys were just kind of, all right, lay it down there, and you hoped it looked like something that was ultimately put on paper and carried forward. I might suggest, we build in contingency in future contracts or in future budgets, because I would tell you anytime you dig on something old, you're going to find something that you didn't know was there. And you should have a contingency for it, because like I said, I don't know if I had a single job down there that we didn't find something weird. Heck, we found like a 6-ton concrete block in the ground one time. We were digging in the base area, and we're like, what is this? I mean, it kept going on and on and on and on and on. We found out it was the anchor block for the old Lift 1 when they put in the new 6-pack, and nobody told anybody it was still there. So it caused a major reroute and stuff. So it used to cause me a great deal of concern, and does cause concern. One way to kind of account for it is a contingency, that if you don't have to use it, you don't have to use it. But these type of things, and sometimes they are large, are not an uncommon thing to happen.
Trustee Barella?
Well, I just want to make sure going further, because it is our duty to be, spending the taxpayers' money correctly. And yes, these projects are vital and extremely important. So I like the idea of the contingency plan, but how much of an overage would we be able to afford, I guess, is what I want to put into perspective. If something like this at the $7 to $10 million level for the new sewer plant happened, it would break us, because that's more than our annual budget. So I just want to make sure that we are examining this extremely carefully moving forward, and whatever engineering firm that is utilized is aware that much of a change order could put us, it would ruin our budget just like that. So, at least this one John was prepared for, and had us, making sure that it was in there, and had us well aware that there was a change order coming. I just want to be very careful, because it's huge. It's huge what we have to do with the sewer plant. This project up at the water tower is going to seem minimal when the sewer plant is finished. Thank you.
Right. And I would just note that the project that we're applying for grants and loans for right now is much more straightforward, even though it's quite a bit more money than what we did up at the water plant. We have videos of our sewer lines. So we know exactly what's going on in there, and we know what we're doing to the sewer plant. And I totally agree with you that contingency is extremely important. And I'm glad that you're reinforcing that point. And I've certainly learned a lot on this project, but believe me that I do everything I can every day to do exactly what you're talking about doing. And sometimes we got to take a hit, but we're going to do everything that we can moving forward to ensure that we don't take hits. But thank you for bringing up those points. Mayor Furman?
Yeah, any other trustee questions or comments? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the settlement agreement included in the packet, as well as the budget allocation for the change order? Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
I'll make a motion to approve the settlement packet as it is as we see it tonight, and the change order.
the budget allocation.
Sorry, budget allocation. Thank
Second.
you.
Thank you, Trustee Harper. Clerk Freeze, roll call, please.
Trustee Varela,
Yes.
Trustee Harper,
Yes.
Trustee Wager,
Yes.
Trustee Birma,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to 1B, pursuant to Attorney Kosnick's instruction, consideration to accept the notice period requested in Administrator Ryder's resignation letter. Any discussion or a motion? Trustee Barella and then Trustee Birma.
So since we are in such a bad position and we have not even started in on a document, I believe that the 30 days, which is required according to contract, would be in our best interest to move forward. So that way we can, I guess, start to have an interim and an educated interim rather than throwing somebody into a position where in previous instances, we've had people who did not want to be in that position, people who were thrown into it and had no idea what was going on. So I think the 30-day consideration would be a wonderful, helpful time for transition in reference to this issue.
Thank you, Trustee Barella. Trustee Birma?
I was just going to clarify. Voting for this motion would be to keep the 30 days and against it would be to be less than 30 days.
No motion was made yet. The consideration is to accept the week notice period included in Administrator Ryder's resignation letter, or to reject that, which would then kick it to 30 days.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I would also note that the proposal in 1C is to consider an transition services agreement to be effective whenever the resignation is effective, to hire Administrator Ryder as a consultant to support the staff and the trustees on an hourly basis to the extent determined reasonable or necessary by the trustees and staff. So that would be the next thing to determine after this, and I think that would be part of our discussion regardless of the notice period decided upon. And while we're there, I'll also clarify that the working assumption, if we were to accept the 1 week notice, is that Director Seitz would continue in his seat as interim administrator for the period of a few weeks, what DOLA recommended, as well as Attorney Kosnick. And what is most common in these situations is to first look to the staff in terms of anyone that is willing and capable to submit letters of intent, because transitioning a title and compensation amount is much more fluid and administratively simple than hiring a new interim. We would look to an external search for the short-term interim should no staff be interested or capable. And simultaneously, we would consider launching a full-scale search for a permanent replacement, with the expectation that the interim, should it be John Seitz or another staff member, would target roughly a 6-month period based on recommendations from DOLA.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I feel a need to clarify the shortened period of
Please.
resignation to 5 days, and I apologize for not knowing about the 30 days. That wasn't my idea. I am more than happy to extend that to the 30 days or to whatever. I feel a very important need, to the extent this board would like me to stay on either in a consulting fashion or as an employee as long as necessary to transition properly. I think that is the single most important thing in accepting my resignation. And I am here and I will help and will do everything I can to make the transition smooth and the training period smooth. So the end of week was not my idea, and I'm fully prepared to stay on and help in whatever capacity this board would like, as long as you'd like, within reason.
Trustee Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to suggest that we take Administrator Ryder up on his offer, utilizing the mandatory 30 days with the possibility of an extension of 30 days if we as the board and our town staff feel that it's needed and required. I think that would be good in aiding in a smooth transition. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Trustee Harper. Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Mr. Ryder wrote his resignation, and I take you at your word, Mr. Ryder, and I know that that's probably not the easiest decision that you've ever made. But I'd like to make a motion to accept your resignation as you wrote it.
So there either needs to be a second or continued discussion on this item.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I guess I make this motion so that we have clarity for the town, and also because it sounds like, Mr. Ryder, you're very available and willing and open to continuing to serve the town, even if it isn't in this current role. So I'm not sure. I guess that's my thinking.
Trustee Birma.
I guess just another clarifying question. Between the 5 days and the 30 days, does that change our timeline as far as appointing an interim town administrator? Or would, regardless of the 5 or 30 days, we'd be able to start that process?
Well, it creates a little ambiguity.
Yeah.
The reason that we're here is there was an multiple day unnoticed absence for a 5th time. And Director Seitz has been sitting as acting administrator since last Thursday. Or the Thursday prior to last Thursday, I guess. And to continue Administrator Ryder on for another 30 days, we would have to clarify who would be sitting in the administrator seat during that period. Whether Director Seitz would resume his role solely as Public Works Director, or if he would still be acting administrator with Administrator Ryder simply helping with the transition. The structure Attorney Kosnick had contemplated was to accept the resignation as it stood so that Director Seitz would have clarity around his role, and to come up with a contract that was beneficial to both Administrator Ryder as well as the board with respect to the transition services, which would provide, very clear direction in terms of who's doing what and who's in what seat. Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Well, and just to add to that, to have clarity for the, then for all staff members. Not just for interim, but so everyone knows.
Yeah, thank you guys for the clarification on that. I would be okay with seconding that, or I can second that.
All right. Any further discussion? Trustee Wiegert?
Yeah, I would like better clarification within the motion. It seems rather ambiguous as you stated, and I'm not exactly sure what we're voting on here. Can we have a little bit more clarity in the motion, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
I was making a motion to accept Administrator Ryder's letter of resignation as he wrote it.
And does that include the 30-day, the 5-day? What are we talking about here?
In his letter, I don't want to speak for you, Administrator Ryder, but in his letter, he indicated February 5th would be his last day. And I just take him at his word. That's what he said, and I accept that resignation as he wrote it.
Maybe I could help provide clarification why the board is considering this. So the board is considering this solely because Administrator Ryder, his proposal is to resign within 30 days of him providing notice. Under the contract, if that's the case.
Sorry, you misspoke. If you could say that again with the correct number of days.
I was saying he was going to resign within 30 days, shorter than 30 days from the time that he submitted the notice. So he's providing a notice. His date of resignation is less than 30 days out. So under the contract, the town needs to agree to that shorter time frame. So that's the reason why the board is considering his resignation at all.
And Attorney Kosnick, what's the purpose of that 30-day clause, or what was the intention of that clause?
So the intention of the clause is to benefit the town. So that's put in there so that a administrator can't just resign and leave a whole, pile of stuff without providing notice. So it's really there to protect the town, the 30-day notice.
And in this case, my view is that it's not necessary because we'll be looking to immediately put in place, assuming the board supports it, a transition services agreement.
I guess I'm going to lean towards the less than 30-day option then personally, because I do think that it's going to take time to find an interim. I feel that the staff is overburdened at the moment, and asking them to take on an interim position could potentially create more work for the staff and put us deeper in the hole. I think it's important that we have that extra time, and Administrator Ryder has said he's willing to give us that extra time. There was also some discussion about contracted hourly. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. What exactly are we talking about there?
So thank you. I just want to restate again, in either scenario, the expectations that Administrator Ryder continues to support the town in a similar capacity. In one scenario, the staff have very little clear understanding of who's in charge, which has been a problem. In the other scenario, we have a very clear understanding of what's going on. So I don't see how a 30-day period benefits the town in any way. With the understanding that the resignation is already valid, it's just a question of what date it becomes enforced. So I think one way we provide clarity and we can create a new construct in terms of the relationship with the town administrator Ryder, and we can immediately commence our process forward. And in the other, we provide a month of ambiguity to staff and more confusion. I do respect everyone else's opinion here. That's mine. Trustee Brella?
I think she's
I'm
frozen.
confused why you think it.
Trustee Brella, you're breaking up. Would you like to go to audio only while you comment so that we can hear you clearly? I mean, Director Seitz, please feel free to decline to respond to this question, but would you like to speak about the chain of command clarity, one way versus the other, and how that impacts your role?
I am prepared to do what needs to be done for the town on a limited basis. I've spoken with John Ryder almost on a daily basis since he submitted his resignation letter. And I am confident that he would be willing to ease the transition professionally. That is one thing that I can say, whether it be me as the interim administrator or someone else. That's how I feel about that. I do relate to your statement about ambiguity, Mayor. It's good to have leadership defined. If that's going to be me or John Ryder or someone else, we need to be pretty clear about that and strong about that. I'll go back to my statement about John Ryder's willingness to continue serving the town and the community. I believe he's good on that, on his word that he has said that he would like to continue that. It's a tough decision for you guys, I guess, but you know, you have the facts in front of you. You have a resignation letter, and you've got to make the best decision for us moving forward. I think your decision regarding this leadership question is important. And as most of you know, I am doing this for the town. I'm the public works director. I don't want to be the administrator, but I'm glad to do this for the town. And those are my thoughts kind of in a nutshell. I'm glad to answer any more questions on the subject, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I think that John's willing to help us beyond this, regardless how you vote or what decision that you make. And he and I work well together, and I think that we'll be able to figure it out on that level. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Director Seitz. Mayor Pro Tem, well, let's go back to Trustee Barella. Are you able to speak now?
Hopefully.
Yep,
And
we
I
hear
guess
you clearly.
I guess John just hit a lot on exactly what I was going to hit on. I don't think that there would be a lot of ambiguity on who's in charge if we're transitioning and we appoint John as interim and acting, and John is his assistant, and moving forward, giving the 30 days to make sure we transition properly. I don't see how that's an issue. We have in the clause, as Attorney Kosnick pointed out, it's there for a reason. It's there so people just don't get up and walk out and say, whoops, sorry, because we've already had that happen a couple of different times. So putting undue pressure on staff again. So, and I like what Jess said. Yeah, I don't think y'all quite realize what happens when, I mean, I know John and Jess do, but the rest of you, it's very difficult on the rest of the staff. So when somebody just walks away, we've had it happen several times. So I think we need this transition time to make sure that everything is segued properly. Staff does understand they have two people that they can go talk to. John Seitz, if we appoint him as interim, there you go. John Ryder as his full-forced assistant to make sure the transition happens. I don't see how this is an issue, because we've got somebody who's willing to help transition, even for an interim, properly. And contractually, it kind of already says it's supposed to be there.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Guess I'm a little confused about the discussion over transition for 30 days or no transition, because Administrator Ryder's expressed the willingness to do that and be paid for it by the town either way. And so either way, Administrator Ryder is leaving the town, is working with the town and continuing to support the town of Silverton through a transition. And it's really just a matter of accepting his resignation or not. Like, I don't think accepting his resignation equals not having support through a transition.
Well, do we continue to have a motion and a second on the table, or has that been retracted?
Mayor,
I make another comment? Mayor,
Please,
I
Director
guess
Seitz, please. Yeah.
going back to the ambiguity question, if you accept his resignation in 30 days or on February 5th, and I'm the interim administrator, is he basically doing the administrator's job while I'm doing the public works director job? I guess a clear definition of roles in that case would be very helpful to me, because I can tell you I've been doing this for about 10 days now, and being the part-time administrator and the part-time public works director, it doesn't really work. It's
Trustee
tough
Harper.
to do. It's tough to do both. You can't really do both at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to support John Seitz, and I don't think that he needs to take on two roles. I believe if Administrator Ryder wants to give us this time, we should allow him to give it to us. Smooth transition is what I said before. And I
Mayor
still
Pro Tem
believe,
Barney.
I'm going to say it again, that we should allow for a 30-day extension if we need to, beyond the 30 days.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Trustee Harper. Okay, I just I heard Administrator Ryder saying that he can do that, but in the letter of resignation, my reading of that would be that the February 5th day is the preference of Administrator Ryder, or you wouldn't have written it in the letter. So I'm just so confused by this discussion, I guess. I want to support Mr. Seitz as well, and all of the staff, and give clarity to everyone working in town hall and everyone in Silverton, so that, so that everyone has what they need. I'm sort of tempted to ask Public Works Director John Seitz if you see, like, what, do you have a recommendation? How does this work the best if you're on the staff at town hall? I think I want to consider that. And I also want to consider and honor Administrator Ryder's request for less than 30 days and a willingness to continue to serve and pitch in where it's needed.
If I am tasked with interim administration leadership, I could do so for weeks if I have the support of John Ryder, or perhaps we look at options for other interim administrators. As Mayor Furman suggested, on staff, perhaps there's someone else on staff that could be interested or equipped to handle that. It's the workload is heavy, but when times get tough, you got to buckle down. You got to do what you got to do. I'm willing to do that. If John can help, that's great. If you accept his resignation letter February 5th or 30 days, we'll get through it one way or the other. I can't really make a recommendation on this matter. This is a board decision, but I'm prepared one way or the other. In my experience, in the past 7, or I guess I would be my 8th town administrator in 7 years. Every time you go through transition, you're going to lose some ground. I think regardless of how you handle this is the best possible situation, in that Administrator Ryder is still here and he's still willing to help with leadership and tasks, administrative tasks at town hall. We haven't had that really since I've been here. So it's a tough decision. I'm glad to comment ad nauseum, but I think you all, at some point, you're going to have to decide on the way forward here.
Thank you. Trustee Bierma, then Trustee Varela, then Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yeah, I think we're just overcomplicating a really simple situation here. Administrator Ryder wrote a letter, and I would like to just take it at face value and move on from there. And as far as I remember, no one retracted the motion and the second, so I'd like to continue from there if possible.
I will do a roll call as soon as the 2 hands that have been up have spoken since discussions available. Trustee Brella?
Just a little while ago, Mayor Pro Tem Barney, you heard Mr. Ryder say that what he put in there was not necessarily what he wanted to write. That's what he was asked to do, or something to that effect. If John would like to answer that, it's up to him, because he already so stated that that's what was requested, I guess, of him to do. So not knowing about the 30 days. So all you got to go back is listen to a few minutes ago to what he said. And there you have your answer about the letter that was presented. That was what was presented to him to do. So I think maybe we should ask Mr. Ryder which way he would prefer.
You're both right. It wasn't necessarily my preference to do the end of day, but that's what I wrote, as Mayor Pro Tem put, so you can take it at face value. I'm simply here to offer my services. As John Seitz said, you've had town administrators, for whatever reason, resign and leave and not be available. I'm available. However you want to do it is up to you. but I am willing to help either as continuing 30 day. I do apologize. I would have insisted on 30 days if I didn't know that was in my contract, to be honest with you. So shame on me. But, you know, if, but you know, we could do it through a services contract. We can go back to my original contract and honor the 30 days and just extend what's in my resignation. I can rewrite it. It's really whatever you want to do. To me, the most important thing is going to be continuing on in whatever capacity you need me to help transition, to not lose as little as ground as possible, and to make sure the interim and perhaps even the next town administrator are fully prepared to take on the job. That is what I want. Or would
Mayor
prefer.
Pro Tem Barney. Thank you,
Thank you,
Administrator Ryder.
Administrator Ryder. Can we clarify again that the process for the search for a new administrator can begin in an overlap if there's a 30-day extension? Or do we have to begin that process at the end of the 30 days?
Attorney Kosnick.
Mayor Pro Tem, there's no, requirement of when you start a search for a new administrator or interim administrator. So if the resignation is effective on, the 5th or after 30 days, you can still, as a board, choose to start a process whenever you feel it's appropriate.
Attorney Kosnick, I think it might be helpful to the extent possible to speak briefly about why we're here at all. Most of that is confidential human resources information, so I would request that you provide the summary as opposed to one of us. But it seems like there's been some forgetfulness among the board about why we're here and the issues we've encountered to date.
Well, the sole reason you're here is because Administrator Ryder submitted a resignation agreement.
Right, and what led up to that, Attorney Kosnick?
He submitted a resignation agreement.
Okay. Clerk Free, Trustee Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to once again request this board to honor the contract in the 30 days from submission of resignation letter. We can start to look, if that's what we so choose, for a new administrator, but I believe Administrator Ryder assisting our current team would be the way to go while we're looking, if that's what we so choose. And I think if and when this search takes longer than 30 days, and if Mr. Ryder, Administrator Ryder is available, then we ask, and if we're all interested, allowing for another 30-day extension.
Thank you.
We have back out there again.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Clerk Freeze, roll call, please.
Trustee Barella,
No.
trustee Harper,
No.
trustee Wager,
No.
trustee Birma,
Yes.
trustee, Mayor Pro Tem Barney, sorry,
Okay, yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. So the motion does not pass. Trustee Wiegert.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Mr. Ryder's resignation with the 30 days from the resignation date and including termination if one more excused absence is presented. Unexcused absence, I mean to say.
Thank you, Trustee Wiegert. Trustee Birma.
So before there's any more discussion on that, the motion has to solely be related to the resignation agreement. And resignation letter. And I'd like to clarify for the record too, if Administrator Ryder, is 30 days now your desire?
Sure, I would accept that.
Okay, so for the record, Administrator Ryder would accept the resignation of 30 days from the date that you originally submitted your notice. And so that would be the extent of the motion.
I will rescind my motion then.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Okay, I thought Trustee Wiegert brought up a good point. So how does it work if we have an unexcused or unnoticed absence in the 30 days?
So I'd like to just clarify for the board that right now, currently until the resignation is effective, Administrator Ryder is still under contract. The only way to modify that contract is through another written amendment to that contract. So the board can't start going through and amending his contract orally right now and adding certain clauses on how he's going to be terminated or anything to that effect. So the sole consideration thus is, a resignation of John Ryder. If there's a desire to amend his contract, that's a totally different issue.
We appear to be 3 and 3 unless we can find some, alternative solution. I would recommend that the board table this decision until Trustee George is able to be present.
So currently, I'm just going to say that Administrator Ryder submitted a resignation. If the board does not approve it, then it automatically is going to 30 days. You can continue it right now, but it's not going to have any effect on the letter that he already submitted unless he chooses to withdraw it, which at this point it's submitted, it's part of the record, and the board can choose to continue it, but in the end, that's the sole determination today.
Trustee Berma?
I was just going to see if we could maybe offer up some compromise and split the difference. And would it be possible to change the date to, say, February 19th and leave here all unhappy?
Trustee Harper?
His contract states 30 days. No one is leaving unhappy.
As Attorney Kosnick said earlier, the reason that 30-day period is there is so that the administrator cannot just take off and leave the town empty-handed. That is not applicable in this situation. He is not leaving the town empty-handed. However, we're here because he hasn't been able to be reliable as an administrator. He's had 5 unnoticed, unexcused, multiple day absences that have totaled more than 20 days, where staff was left with no leadership. Days were lost, meetings were missed, deadlines were missed, liability has been created for the town and continues to be created for the town. Administrator Ryder is a wonderful man. He's very smart. But the lack of reliability is what has led us here today. Extending this any further leaves the town in a very perilous position. It leaves the staff without a clear indication of where they're going. It delays the transition process.
Can I make a comment, Mayor?
Director Seitz?
Yes, regardless of where this goes tonight, I would like clear direction from the board where I stand. I don't really care about the title, but the responsibilities, regardless of what you decide or don't decide, please leave me with clear direction on what my responsibilities will be tomorrow morning when I go to work.
I request that we have another meeting before the February 5th deadline that Tyler George can be present at. Trustee Wiegert and then Trustee Harper.
I think Public Works Director Sight is correct. He deserves to know what he should be responsible for. And I'd just like to make a motion and see where it goes. I respect your opinion, Mayor, but I'm not sure that we're on the same page. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept Town Administrator Ryder's resignation with 30 days as specified in his original contract.
Second,
Clerk Freeze, roll call, please. Sorry, 1 second. Trustee Birma.
I mean, I would appreciate a little more discussion about, finding that middle ground if you guys are open for it. I only heard from Trustee Harper. And I guess this is more directed at Trustee Barella and Trustee Wiegert, if you're willing to have any sort of compromise.
I believe 30 days is a compromise.
I do as well.
How so?
First off, it's contractual, unknowing to the letter that was written. And secondly, it's going to give Director Sight time to figure out his department for the next 30 days so he can transition nicely. I mean, I don't see the issue here.
I think staff deserves to know what their role is, and I'm willing to take any help that we can get. And if Mr. Ryder is willing to give us another 30 days, I'm willing to take that.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney and then Trustee Birma.
Well, Mr. Ryder is willing to give it to us either way. And I just wonder if there's some relief for Mr. Ryder in not being burdened by the heavy responsibilities of the role for the next 30 days.
I disagree. He has volunteered in a public forum.
Trustee Birma.
I guess I'm a little confused. I see if we accept his letter as it is, then Mr. Seitz has a very clear direction of what his role will be by the end of the week, rather than by the end of the month.
And
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
and he will continue to be supported by Administrator Ryder.
It also appears to me that there's a more significant negative financial impact with an extended period. Administrator Ryder's salary contemplates a full-time position. If Director Seitz is to take on the administrator role for this period with support from Administrator Ryder, the town will be overpaying because Director Seitz will also need to be compensated accordingly for the increased responsibility and time. So we will end up with more overhead as opposed to transitioning to some type of transition services agreement where Administrator Ryder is relied on to the extent needed, but not more so. It gives Administrator Ryder more time and flexibility, which he's been requesting. And it also relieves the town of extra financial burden. We do have a motion and a second on the table. Is there further discussion or shall we roll call? Clerk Freeze, roll call, please.
Trustee Barella,
Yes.
Trustee Harper,
Yes.
Trustee Wager,
Yes.
Trustee Birma,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
No.
Mayor Furman.
No. So I would request that we reschedule this agenda item for tomorrow night with Trustee George present. Trustee Harper.
I will not be able to attend tomorrow night. We need way more time than that.
To talk about the same issue that we're talking about right now.
I will not be able to be here in attendance. Our scheduled meetings are Mondays. If we want to add this to next Monday's agenda, we can do that.
It has to happen before the deadline in the letter. for this to be considered.
I would request to pick another day of the week, please.
Is Tuesday good? I mean, Wednesday? Is Wednesday good?
Is that good for the rest of the board?
Not for me.
How about everyone else? Trustee Wiegert?
I believe it's inappropriate to go on with the meeting when we know that a member of the trustees is not going to be present, even though you can assume that they're not going to vote in your favor. That's just uncalled for, in my opinion. It's not right.
Well, it seems like we have the same situation this evening with Trustee George not being able to be here. So we can also just wait until Trustee George gets back as an alternative, but this seems like the same issue regardless.
I would disagree. Trustee George is a unplanned, although excused, it's an unplanned absence. We're hearing from two different trustees that they have other commitments already made. I stated at the beginning, when we all first took the oath, that we should respect each other's personal time. And I'm just not seeing that with this board.
All right, how's everyone's availability for Thursday, February 4th? Trustee Wiegert? Trustee Birma and then Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
I mean, I would just say the biggest way to respect everyone's time would be if we could just have a good discussion and come to a compromise and agree on something, even if it's not what either of us want. There's no sense in dragging this out and costing the people and citizens of our town their tax dollars. Especially when
we could talk about how much we've been using the attorney.
Which is a direct result of the issues we've been experiencing with Administrator Ryder.
As far as you want everybody to believe.
That's inappropriate.
That's not okay.
I believe Attorney Kosnick mentioned earlier in this meeting about certain items, both privy to be discussed and other things not to be discussed. I believe that several members of this board are out of order, extremely out of order at this point, at this time. And I am very disappointed.
Attorney Kosnick, do you agree with that?
Very disappointed.
I apologize. I do not follow the conversation right now. If you want to clarify what I am supposed to be concerned about or not, I'm not following right now.
Do you agree with Trustee Harper's assessment that this is out of order by multiple members of this trustee board?
From a legal perspective, I have not noted anything, if that is my question.
Thank you, Attorney Kosnick. Trustee Birma?
Can I make a motion to accept the letter with a change in date to February 19th? Is that possible?
You have to ask Administrator Ryder whether he'd be willing to modify his letter to that date.
Of course.
Then yes, you can make that motion.
So moved.
Trustee Wiegert.
I'd just like to remind the public and all my constituents and the members on the board, the main reason that I wanted to run for a second term was support the staff. And I stand behind that. I want to do whatever I can to support the staff. And I think that means clearly defining the roles as our Public Works Director Sites has asked. And so I will second Trustee Bierma's motion, and I'd really like to see us really work towards becoming a stronger board. I'm really disappointed in the conduct that we've seen thus far and the tenure that we've had on the board, and I'd really like to see us move forward.
Thank you, Trustee Wiegert. Clerk Freeze, roll call, please.
Trustee Barella,
I will support this decision. Yes.
Trustee Harper,
Yes.
Trustee Wager,
Yes.
Trustee Bierma,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. So the board chooses to accept Administrator Ryder's resignation with the modification of February 19th.
May I ask again who seconded the motion?
I did.
Trustee Wiegert seconded the motion made by Trustee Bierma.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right.
My microphone wasn't working again. Neither is my
Oh.
video.
No problem. All right. So with that in mind, how do we provide Director Sites and Administrator Ryder with the clarity that they've requested? Will Director Sites continue to serve as acting administrator with Administrator Ryder providing support as needed, as they have been for the last 10 days? Director Sites, would that be your preference?
At your pleasure. I think that John and I work well enough together that we can figure it out either way. So no preference, to answer your question.
Well, I would say it's difficult to put us in the position to tell you exactly what gives you the most clarity.
Saying one or the other. Say, John Sites, you are the interim administrator until John Ryder vacates his position, or you say, John Ryder, you are the administrator until you vacate your position.
Understood. Trustee Bierma?
Oh, I was just going to advocate, since it's been in that situation for the last 10 days, that it would just be continued, in which Mr. Sites is the acting town administrator being supported by Mr. Ryder, Administrator Ryder.
Trustee Wiegert?
Respectfully disagree. I think we extended Mr. Ryder's resignation to the 19th, and we should allow him to be the administrator. I feel like Public Works Director Sites has enough on his plate. He needs to focus on his tasks at hand, and I do not think that we should be burdening him with the interim administrator position.
With due respect, I would ask John Ryder to do the work of the administrator, and I would assist him as necessary. So I think it's in a name. As long as the work gets done, that would be my priority. John Ryder knows how to do the job. If he doesn't come to work on Wednesday, then it'll be me anyway. If he comes to work, then he's doing the administrator's job and not so much me. I could do my job. I think you're talking about either way. I think would work. There, one might be better than the other, but I'm fine either way, as long as there's clarification.
Trustee Barella?
Did everybody hear me this time?
We can.
Okay, so I agree with Trustee Wiegert that we just extended John to the 19th. And in that capacity, he should be helping Mr. Seitz learn the role, understand what everything that will be necessary for him to become interim after the 19th. And that way it gives Mr. Seitz enough time to get his crew and everything he needs for town works to run smoothly for the transition.
I'll support that with the caveat that the expectation is not necessarily that Director Seitz take on the medium-term interim administrator role, as Director Seitz has expressed a lack of interest in, and that we follow the process recommended by DOLA to receive letters of intent from any staff member interested in that position to be considered before that determination is made of which staff member may or may not take that on. Is there any opposition to that suggestion?
Not opposition. I'm honestly okay with both. I have a lot of confidence that Mr. Seitz and Mr. Ryder can totally work together in either capacity.
Well, we need some input, team. Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
I don't know what to say. This just feels so divisive and so oppositional. And I don't really want to give input to be divisive or oppositional. I just want it to work for both of these guys and the whole staff. And I don't have much expertise in this department. So it's just really hard to, I guess, feel that confident about the direction.
Trustee Harper?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to again reiterate, the longer we have Administrator Ryder, the better our town will be. The better our staff will be supported. Whatever we do tonight, the longer we have Administrator Ryder, the better off we'll be. Plain and simple.
Thank you, Trustee Harper. So to reiterate Trustee Barella's suggestion with my modification, the suggestion that I'm making is that Administrator Ryder resume his role as administrator as of tomorrow morning through the 19th. Director Seitz will resume his role as Public Works Director and not acting administrator. And over the course of that period of time, or some shorter period as we determine, we will accept letters of intent from staff to consider for their position as interim administrator. Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
And if we receive none, does it default to John Seitz?
It would default. It would default to Director Seitz as long as he's able, which he just said, and willing, which he just said, until such time that a search results in a new hire. Trustee Birma?
I would voice my support for that.
I support that as well.
Trustee Barella? Trustee Wiegert?
I think I've already said that I'm good with that.
Although that's not a formal vote, that is a majority this evening to set direction. Thank you for the discussion. It's unfortunate how divisive this has been. Trustee Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you please repeat what the majority has just agreed upon?
Sorry, I think my thing is working now, correct?
Yep, we can hear you now.
I will let Trustee Harper, I'll defer to that to make sure I heard everything as well, because everything cut out again, and then I will join the discussion.
I don't believe further discussion is warranted at this time. 4 people on this board supported the description I provided before, and I'd rather not restate it at the risk of misstating it, but there is a recording of this meeting.
Please restate it. I did not hear it. I went out again on my computer. I'm sorry, I'm having a technical difficulty. Would you please restate it so I can hear it directly in this meeting?
All right. The proposal was for Administrator Ryder to resume his role as of tomorrow morning as administrator, for Director Seitz to resume his role as Public Works Director tomorrow morning through the 19th. During that period, we will receive or we will request letters of interest from staff members who wish to serve in the medium-term administrator role while a full-scale search is commenced for a permanent replacement. Trustee Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify, and I don't believe I had understood that clearly the first time. And I do support that. And I would like to have a roll call vote.
Okay.
I
Would
think-
someone like to make a motion?
I was just going to say, like I said, as soon as Trustee Harper was finished, and thank you for clarifying. I do support that as well. Thank you for clarifying. I needed to hear it.
You're welcome. Well, it's not traditional for the mayor to make a motion, but since I'm the one that said all of the words, I will motion to approve what I've suggested.
I will second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Harper.
Thank you, sir.
Clerk Freeze, roll call, please.
Trustee Barilla,
Yes.
Trustee Harper,
Ma'am.
Trustee Wager,
Yes.
Trustee Bierma,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. Thank you very much. Looking at 1C, consideration of appointing an interim administrator and discussion of an administrator transition services agreement. I would request that we set some type of time frame shorter than the 19th to receive letters of interest from staff, and that we direct Attorney Kosnick to put together a proposal of a transition services agreement for us to consider and propose to Administrator Ryder. Trustee Barilla?
Who will take the submittal of the letters of intent from staff?
That would seem like Attorney Kosnick would be the most appropriate. Attorney Kosnick, do you agree?
That's fine. And I think what the board is looking for is just identifying who would be interested. Is that correct? It's nothing formal, or would you like to see something more formal than that?
I think it'd be helpful to receive a formal letter of interest. I don't think we necessarily need to see resumes out of the gate because we're all pretty familiar with our current staff. I suppose if multiple interested candidates were considered and we needed further clarification, the board could request that. I'm fully open to suggestion or consideration of alternatives. Trustee Harper?
Thank you, sir. Are we suggesting right now that we start taking and receiving letters from staff starting tomorrow?
Yes, as soon as someone has a letter available, but we would need to agree on some type of deadline. That would be prior to the 19th, because we would need to have considered and determined to transition smoothly, or we would have to rely on director sites while we continued to consider. Trustee Barella, and then Trustee Bierma, and then Trustee Harper, is that a clarification you're looking for?
Yes, sir, with one additional. For all intents and purposes, if a staffer is selected, that individual would be approved by this committee, these us trustees, and that person would start when? The 19th?
Well, I guess
20th?
it would depend, I suppose, on when we make the decision and who the person is and what sort of support they might need. And I imagine that the transition services agreement would also need to stipulate, assistance in that transition as well. Fortunately, we do have Director Sites who's already stepped in multiple times if we did need someone to hold over that position. Director Sites?
Yes, there is a meeting scheduled on the 22nd. I would certainly be willing to serve in capacity as interim or acting administrator until that date, or the meeting after that, if need be.
Thank you. Trustee Barella?
I would like to also know when we are going to formally go over the, not just for an interim, because obviously our staff seem to be very overburdened at the present time. So trying to push one of them into that position to have to do double duty has been an issue in previous years. So I would suggest that this board get a copy of the work that we did to start our search a couple years ago, and have that at our ready in our hands, so that way we can start reviewing it in order to put it out, because the faster we start advertising, it's not so important then that we try to overburden staff. The burden then becomes on us getting the word out fast enough, getting a document together, so that way we can start shopping for a new administrator. I feel that that is very important, more so because then we keep staff in the current positions that they're in, and they know their job duties, and we don't overburden them. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Barella. I completely agree. Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
So just thinking about the deadline for the letters of interest, is Friday the 5th too soon? We'll meet again on the 8th. So then maybe we could have those letters in our packet and discuss them on the 8th.
That is quick, but I believe that would give us the most amount of time between the 5th and the 19th to make a determination. In a worst case scenario, we receive an indication from staff tomorrow or any interested parties that that is not sufficient, and we can consider what to do on the 5th, if that's the case. Trustee Bierma?
Yeah, no, my suggestion was going to be the same as Mayor Pro Tem Barney's, of the 5th. That way it could be discussed on the 8th, and if we need to, you could extend the deadline to the 12th, and then have it be discussed on the 22nd as a worst case scenario, or if we needed an extension, and Director Sites has already said he would be okay going through the 22nd.
Trustee Barella?
Well, if we're going to include this to the 5th, and it's going to be in the Monday packet for the 8th, then so should our letter for shopping for a new administrator. Paul, do you still have all of that available for this group from what we did on the previous board?
I believe I do. And just for clarification, you're just referring to the RFP that went out and some of the supporting materials. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, I should still have that.
Okay, I'd like to see that in Monday's packet as well, if we're going to give town staff until the 5th to put in letters of intent. So that way we have our ball rolling to make sure that going forward, we're not overburdening current staff.
Thank you. That's a very good suggestion.
So my only additional suggestion would be to have it done by the end of the 4th, because I believe Clerk Freeze needs some time to put the packets together on that Friday. I believe she begins on Thursday. Maybe she could speak to when it would be helpful to have that submitted by, so that she has enough time.
Usually I have the deadline of everything as of noon on Wednesday. That way I can pull it together and have it to you guys by at least Thursday afternoon. Give you enough time.
That sounds good to me. And to clarify what Attorney Cosmic would be putting in the packet on Monday, that would just be the historical RFP and related materials. It wouldn't be necessarily what we would be putting out immediately after the Monday meeting. Okay.
Of course not. It would be historical. So all of the new board could familiarize themselves with what the RFP looks like and the wording and how we did to try to attract 3 candidates that we didn't end up hiring.
Understood. Thank you. And so the third piece of all this, and I know this is going to be a tremendously long motion, it sounds like, is can we direct Attorney Cosmic to begin drafting a proposal for the transition services agreement? So if I recall correctly, we would be requesting letters of intent or interest from staff members by February 4th to be included in the packet for us to review on Monday. We will be asking Attorney Cosmic to include all of the RFP and related materials for the search in the Monday packet, and also directing Attorney Cosmic to prepare a proposal, a term sheet, I suppose, for a transition services agreement.
Could I give that a so moved?
Attorney Cosmic, is that sufficient?
I understood it.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I can second it.
Clerk Freeze, roll call, please.
Trustee Barilla,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes, ma'am.
trustee Wager,
Yes.
trustee Beerma,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. Thank you. With that, thank you all for your discussion this evening and for moving us forward. This meeting is now adjourned. Good night.